What started as a group of girls stuck sitting in the front row together in PT school became a friendship full of laughs, cries, and of course, endless studying. We wanted to start this podcast to talk about all things PT and share our passion for the profession as well as the trials and tribulations that come with it. We're happy you're here and happy to share.
Alrighty, here we have Johnny Boy, John Schuler.
Howdy. Thanks for having me.
John, tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe share what you want, where you're from, what you're up to, what you do in life.
Yeah. It's been quite a bit here lately, it feels like. Pretty much graduated with you guys, and then pretty much from there, went to Sioux Falls, been working there. Working at Vera McKinnon right now, kind of just working on the acute care side and then kind of sticking that out for the last 2 years. And I don't know, I love it. Love what I do. I know you guys were already chatting with Patricia, so you probably got the lowdown of what we all do there and everything going on.
Yeah.
It's a good opportunity because we're able to see quite literally everything.
Yeah.
On some of the loads that you're on, it's like you truly don't know what's going to be added. So yeah. It's a fun time, especially for the therapy world, because there's times where it's like you get patients of just about everything and it's like, oof, man, you were starting at the bottom, building the kind of whole foundation, kind of bridging the gap between everything, I guess, and return to prior level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Johnny Boy, what's the coolest thing though you've seen at the hospital, or like the craziest?
Oh man, that's a deep question. I'd have to think about it. Oh, craziest. I'd have to think. I mean, honestly, being in Sioux Falls, that's where a majority of all kind of complex stuff gets sent. Mm-hmm. One of my final clinicals was in Pierce, South Dakota, and when I was telling them that I was going to work in Sioux Falls, everybody was like, "Oh, Sioux Falls for therapy, yeah." And I was like, "Yeah."
And they're like,
yeah. Like, they were like, "That's where everybody goes. That's a little tough." And I was like, "Oh." Like, at the time, it's a little bit scary, but honestly, it might be a little boring, kind of switching up and going to a different place where you don't get more complex patients, because the stuff that at one point seems really scary isn't too bad. You kind of grow through, and I don't know, it's kind of fun having like some more complex stuff. Kind of puts you to the test, especially with therapy. When you're limited with what you can do, you'll get like all sorts of traumas and stuff, and it's like, all right, well, we can use our right elbow. Like, yeah, okay, let's see, how are we getting you out of bed? Like, and you find a way. It's kind of surprising. You can read through all the charts of patients and whatnot, and you'll be like, oh boy, this might be tough. But then you go in there and it's like, wow, I mean, on paper, this is pretty tough, but you're doing fantastic. And honestly, that's pretty huge for just overall perspective, leading to improved outcomes and just overall progression. Because people that are pretty optimistic, and even though they're at probably the worst part of their life, I mean, they're tough and work through it, and positive attitude goes a long way.
Yeah. You get to smile at them and be like, good morning.
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
I'll sneak in a good old dad joke here and there.
Well, you're a dad now, so you can do it.
Oh, I know. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that's probably, I guess I didn't mention that in the beginning too, but had a kid, 11 months old today, so he's a fun little guy, little crazy guy. He's a little pool rat lately. It's been about 100 degrees, so we've been hitting the pool.
Hopefully he can come on the pod in a bit if he's free. But
oh yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know him on the pod, we didn't graduate with John once, but twice. We did athletic together. And with athletic training, do you feel like that affected your, did that affect you trying to want to do acute just with like the emergency care side of athletic training, or do you feel like that was just totally separate?
To be like on your feet faster,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it did give me a lot of direction towards more kind of the physical therapy and patient acute side. Just with, I mean, I liked athletic training, but with like the patient population, I'll be honest, I didn't really get the fulfillment I feel I do now. because also during kind of undergrad leading into throughout grad school and stuff, I was also a CNA. So kind of working at a nursing home, doing kind of patient care with patients that aren't moving as well as a lot of the athletes. I don't know. It just felt, at least for me, a lot more fulfilling, I guess, like helping somebody return home compared to like return to sport. That was a huge thing for me, just working with patients that are really going through it and having a tough time, and just seeing them from start to finish where there's a lot going on and they were barely able to get out of bed, to ultimately going back home and spending Christmas with their family and staying with their family and doing all that. I was like, man, this is awesome. Not to say that it's bad to do, anything else like outpatient and athletic training or anything, but it's just a different kind of dynamic. And I've always been kind of drawn more towards the more inpatient side with all of the stuff I've done. A lot of great things and a lot of stuff kind of leads me and gives me direction. It's kind of cool having that athletic training background too, because even for just like some of the quick kind of, not even quick, but just evaluations and stuff. I mean, I've been able to have a lot of experience with doing evals, with injuries, doing special testing, checking range of motion, just overall, just even having all that experience to work with patients and kind of know what to deep dive through to kind of get a differential diagnosis. Because even though we're in the hospital, the docs are able to just order an MRI, CT, X-ray. That's kind of their gold standards with that everything, but a lot of the times we'll even get sent down to the emergency area too, and we'll kind of do our own assessment and whatnot. And just in general, just being able to narrow stuff out with even patients on the inside. You'll have a fall or something, you'll be working with the patient for a bit, and you kind of know when to refer out to a doctor or something like that, where it's like, oh yeah, like I would probably have you guys check out some more into their knee or ankle or whatever. And ultimately that can kind of lead to further imaging or diagnosis from kind of docs at that point. So that's another aspect too I love with acute care, is just the teamwork kind of part of it. You have all the providers there, so it's like everybody's on board. It's awesome. It's like, okay, I'm good at that, but there's a respiratory therapist there, so I don't have to worry about some of that stuff, which is really nice, especially when sats are dropping. It's like, ooh, you take that heated high flow.
No, I know what you mean, because there are some patients I've been having recently with like weeping legs for lymphedema or like sores, and it's like, man, what do I do? I actually just texted our professor, but if there was like someone right next door where I could just knock and just like confirm with them,
oh yeah,
nice.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
I feel like you kind of can. I can definitely give you some contacts too of some of our coworkers that are really big into the lymph area. One of our lymph therapists that's an occupational therapist now is expanding big time. She's been giving a lot of presentations and kind of developing a better program at our facility. So there's a lot of stuff growing even on our end, because even with like the lymph, like you mentioned, they'll have like all the docs with all the specialties and they'll give all medication based stuff, but ultimately they'll throw in a therapy eval for lymphedema. So it comes back to us.
Yeah.
Which I'm all for. It does sometimes kind of get you though, because it's like, oh, I'm all for therapy, and you kind of are always like advocating for the profession, especially like kind of just different things like postpartum. You'll get some antepartum, and it's a little bit like, I mean, now that my wife's kind of gone through it, I have a better understanding. But I'll be honest, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm all for therapy, and then the orders end up on my load, and I'm like, oh, I'm giving the therapy. Like, it's very important, but it's like, oh man, now it's me.
Brooks pelvic floor evals sometimes are a little intense. Oh man, can I really fix that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Speaking about advocating though for the profession, John, you are currently doing some APTA stuff.
Yeah.
Proposing a bill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about that, and maybe like the process of what got you into it, what it's kind of been like.
Yeah, it's been quite a process. I mean, it all started because for work, we have like it's called like a PACE system, where it's kind of like you can volunteer, do all this extra kind of curricular stuff, and you get like kind of like a compensation thing or whatever. So that was kind of what got me into it. I was like, oh, all right, like do this, get some extra cash. I was like, awesome. But one of the things is to email kind of representatives and legislature to advocate for your profession or for something that you're passionate about. So I was kind of just doing some super sleuthing and going through. The APTA has some great pre-made kind of like emails that you can draft and send out to legislation. So I was kind of going through those, had some that popped up, and one of them that popped up was on equal and fair copays for your state, because I guess that's been a pretty common issue across the board with different states. And actually, I'd love to hear your guys' input, because as I'm kind of drafting some of this stuff, I'm starting to kind of get a better idea of it and revamp stuff. But in prior conversation, I was actually meeting with Braden Jones, another guy in our class, because he was telling me, he's like, man, yeah, I've had a lot of patients where they come in and we give them a call and we're all set up, and all of a sudden they call out and say like, oh, we won't be coming anymore. We're just canceling all of our therapy because the copay is going to be about $90 a visit. And that's just a little out of our budget. So it's a little pricey. So I was like, oh man. And that was kind of more on the anecdotal evidence kind of side of things. So just kind of hearing through just different things with that, and even talking with other kind of outpatient people too. It's like you see the expensive copays, and so that was kind of one of the things that I popped up. So I included that with the bill originally, and still have it on. That was kind of the one of the emails I had sent out. I had sent out about 4 different emails throughout to the House and Senate members of South Dakota. And so that was one of them, the copay. The next part that I was kind of focusing in on, because I was like, okay, well, I'll send out a couple more, was to include therapy as like a preventative care service, because we're recognized more as like a kind of specialized, like rehabilitative, like you've already been injured, now I better go get therapy, instead of like well, I'm starting to get a little bit of like pain, or just even if I'm not injured at this point, like what should I do? Like, these are my goals, this is what I want, this is what I want to avoid, what can I do? Like, even if this is my work, like I'm very involved in XYZ, and we can give great education and stuff. So I was like, heck, like working in the hospital, it doesn't necessarily affect me with not working in outpatient, but I was like, this would save so many people from having to come into the hospital, especially with just pain that becomes chronic because they've had pain who knows where across their body for 20, 30 years that's just gotten collectively worse. And so that was a big focus. I always was like, okay, preventative care would be an awesome expansion for physical therapy. I think would be big. The other part with that I kind of tailed off of in that aspect of us being preventative care is for physical therapy to be covered by insurance, at least for like one annual visit. And we've been kind of in the works working with the representatives of finding like a specific tailored out number, if not for everybody, because I know that in the past, like insurances have fought back with overall costs that they'd have to provide for increased physical therapy visits throughout the year. One of the ones that they kind of compared this bill to that they've gotten trouble with in the past was like a breast cancer screening one. And it was because a lot of, I think it was like small businesses too, like some of it had a price like increase for some of these like businesses and just overall insurances to provide that like package, I guess. So that's kind of one thing that we're kind of wondering if we're going to kind of provide like a certain age, or if it'd be like an annual, or if it'd be like a biannual, or even just every other year kind of. I don't know. We're seeing. And I guess I've never drafted a bill before. So honestly, I'm kind of learning as I go. I mean,
that's awesome.
I helped testify for the one in school, which is a good experience for the handicap one in North Dakota. But this will be my first time actually drafting one and working through with it. So I'm kind of learning as I go. So pretty much keeping copays fair. And then the final one that I snuck in, because I was like, okay, I am tired of ordering all the equipment and then having to send it to a doctor for signature. I was like, therapists need to be able to order DME. I was like, that's kind of crazy that we can't, because it's not terrible at our facility. And I don't know with you guys on your guys' side of things, how, I guess you guys probably just refer out for, if you wanted like a signature for any kind of DME. But for us,
Currently, I just have stuff in the back that I let people borrow.
But if,
Oh, that's nice. That is nice though, having just a closet. We have a place in town now that just opened up within the last year, and it's called Owens Outfitters here in Sioux Falls, and they have a similar thing where you can kind of borrow it as long as you need, bring it back, and very, very positive thing. A lot of people are benefiting from it, but yeah. So because we have to go through, we'll do all the education on the equipment. We'll fill out all of the kind of paperwork side of things, I guess, per se. And then in the end, it's like send it to a provider for signature. So even though on the doctor's side, all they have to do is just pull up their phone and it's just, are you this doctor? Yes. Do you approve of this patient getting a walker? Yes. That's all they have to do. So it's relatively easy, but you do wait a lot of times, especially if you do end up sending it to a surgeon or just any kind of doctor, which they're all pretty busy. I mean, it's a hospital where we're at capacity most of the time too. So and that was what I was just talking to my boss about today, is if we could get like a survey out to the providers, because if I could get them on board, I think that might give a little bit of background on that as well. Because if they were like, yeah, I don't feel the need to be able to have to click on different things, just even though the PT is doing all the education and they're the ones telling me what needs to be ordered, it kind of cuts out the middleman. So that was the big one where I was like, okay, I got to throw something that'll help me out, hopefully. So I kind of included that. My main thing was advocating for the profession, but I was like, that would make my life a lot easier. And for patients too, because a lot of times they're like waiting on the signature before it can be delivered, and quite a process that I think could be definitely revamped. But yeah.
I know. That reminds me, I was trying to get my patient a walker. She was just using her ankles. He was way too tall. And she needed a walker. She was walking with the cane and could not walk 40 yards without having to sit down. And our treatment rooms are in the back. So she couldn't even get into a treatment room without taking a break. And so from my previous experience, I was like, okay, I'm going to call her referring provider, and if I can, I'll just leave a voicemail, and was just like, hi, saw so-and-so, really think she would benefit from a walker. Please call me back, X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm seeing too, X, Y, and Z. And yeah, we get a fax to get a walker. And I was like, what do I do with this? I don't order walkers. I'm asking you to put in the order as the referring provider so that they can get
the DME place.
Because we can't order them from DME. I was so confused. So I don't know what happened there.
Maybe we can in Montana. I don't know.
Maybe we'll double check.
Maybe we should check on that.
But I was like,
John, can you check for us?
I just
I know I could.
like, and you want to order a walker? I was like, I want a walker ordered, but I'm not ordering it. I don't think I can. So if we can just order it, that'd be pretty.
Yeah.
Safe.
I don't know. Those things are so important that you talk with John, of us cutting out that middleman, because we have that. For example, I have one patient that I just ordered a cheap AFO on Amazon to test, because for one, to go get a custom AFO where we live, we're so rural, it's not, he'd have to drive it at least 2 hours. You'd have to have multiple appointments, and he may never wear it. He lives on a ranch. We might as well get the cheap one first on Amazon and test it. But if we had the ability just to order, man, we could cut out so much wasted insurance money, really.
Exactly. Well, they think of how many times, I'm kind of curious, and I don't want to speak for the docs, but I'm almost kind of curious as to what exactly they go over with DME, because I'm sure they go through it, but I'd be surprised, I guess, and I could be completely wrong, if it was as in depth as us, because I rarely see a doctor actually educate on any form of DME. They'll order it, and to be honest, even at our place, sometimes when the docs order it, almost causes a little bit more trouble, because for them, they're like, oh, I want my patient to have the equipment, so they'll be like, oh, we just had I don't know, any kind of foot surgery where now we're not going to be weight bearing. I'm going to put in an order for a cane. I'm going to put an order in for a walker. I'm going to put an order in for crutches. I'm going to put an order in for an electric scooter. I'm going to put an order in for a hospital bed. And it's I'm all for it, but insurance isn't going to cover that. So then I've had it where on the back end, then home medical, the people that kind of provide the equipment for us, they give me a call and they're like, hey, just checking. A doc put in an order for everything. What do we actually need? And then I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna go in. I'll let you know. And it's like, okay, we just need a walker. I've already met with them. They already have XYZ. Or it's like, or I'll chat with them, and they're like, I already have crutches. I've been using them, and I'm good with them. And I'm like, I guess you can cancel all that. So I mean, I'm all for people ordering and having it, but having us do it, and when we're the ones providing the education, I just pulled it up for Montana. Physical therapists are not authorized. It has to be a physician or, in quotes, other licensed practitioner of the healing arts whose scope includes prescribing such equipment, which I'm assuming is just physician, maybe PA, because I believe that PAs are classified as providers in that sense, because they can put in orders for other stuff as well, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of surprised that that's not a bigger push, I guess, for kind of more stuff. Which, who knows? Maybe it'll take off. I mean, I think with the ways
you push it.
Yeah, with a lot of the ways that
just like school, send us that bill when you're done, and we'll make it for Montana.
It'll probably make its way. I'm sure. I mean, if it goes through and whatever all works out, I'm sure we'll probably see stuff on the APTA side.
Yeah.
I kind of started it with just the representatives, and we were kind of just shooting stuff back and forth, and they were giving me just some stuff of like what they recommend, what they'd like, and then I was drafting it, and then kind of at a certain point we were talking, and we're like, oh, it'd be nice to have some kind of statistical information. So that's kind of where I was like, oh boy, especially with the copays, I was like, I mean, I can look stuff up and see what prices are, but I'm not entirely sure. So that's when we were like, we better call in the big guns. So we called in APTA, and then they got on board. They were helpful. They were able to send a lot of resources.
That's cool.
I was kind of anticipating that they'd take over a bit more, but they haven't. But they've been helpful with resources.
Maybe this podcast will help them take over more.
Maybe.
Awesome.
Well,
they were to our podcast.
You never know.
Yeah, they were mentioning just how like they love people that are advocating, so they were kind of like always kind of throwing in stuff in their emails. They're like, oh, we'd love to have you on the legislative team and keep us posted and all this stuff. But I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it does take a bit of time, and I can see the whole process of it, because you kind of do a bit of lobbying, you send stuff out. I was reaching out to one of our old kind of managers that was out in the outpatient kind of realm, because I was kind of referred to him by one of my other coworkers. He's got a lot more experience in the whole kind of legislative side of things, so I was kind of reaching out to him, and he was able to send me a plethora of information of what to look out for, who to reach out to, just stuff to think about, because it was kind of interesting, because even bringing up that with him, he brought up other points I hadn't really thought about, because he was saying that even like we should reach out to maybe even like the chiropractors, because they might throw like their hat in the ring with some of this stuff too, and either be for it if they get included, or maybe just be against it. And that's where it is kind of interesting to reach out to just different entities, and that's where I'd love to survey our doctors, because I'm assuming I get an overwhelming majority vote of support for therapy to order equipment, which I'd assume would be even Montana too. Otherwise, you'll get those faxes of order walker.
And it's back to like, not that they're not capable, but it's like one less thing they don't have to do. They're already
do so.
Exactly.
And like,
especially for something so easy that they aren't even the ones doing it. It's like, yeah, I can order equipment. Just let me know, and I'll have to do that after I deal with all this, and I don't have to see that patient. I just have to put in an order. It's just something that would cut out so much extra nonsense, because I don't even know if a doctor could order. Well, they might be able to without necessarily seeing you, because I know with some of the criteria that we fill out, it goes in depth of like why they need the equipment, and you have to justify it. I'm not entirely sure if you need an in-person visit or not, but therapy more or less is probably in person, unless you're doing something like telehealth.
Yeah.
But one of the big ones too that I was including in my bill, so the APTA was able to send me a big article on just the overall cost benefits of physical therapy. That's included in some of the I have that in the summer or bill summary kind of page I emailed out to you guys too, but it was kind of interesting just to see the cost savings of physical therapy.
So less.
Yeah, but there were some big numbers. I mean, for like carpal tunnel syndrome, they found that $39,533 was saved per episode of care.
Wow.
With physical therapy. So I kind of included a lot of that information, but even like the falls prevention, it was like 2,144 saved per episode of care. So it's like, I mean, just by being able to provide DME, being able to help them with whatever's going on, I mean, you're able to save tons of money in the long run. It might just be one of those things where you got to fight the short term where it's like, well, prices will go up and we don't know if we can afford or we don't know if we will. And that's where I'd included a bit at the end too. Just kind of including a spiel on if we are to change anything. I did a severability clause. And so essentially what I had there was if any provision of this chapter, its application to any person or circumstance is held invalid, the remainder of the chapter or application of the provision to other persons or circumstances is not affected. So essentially we're able to kind of keep some without deterring the entire bill. And that was one thing I was actually warned about too, speaking out with or the old outpatient kind of manager too, was just with proposing a bill, you have to be pretty keen on reviewing everything and having it exactly how you'd like and being aware of what other committees would like, because sometimes as it gets drafted and sent out and reviewed by different entities, they kind of put their hands in the pot and that can turn your bill into something that you did not want or
well, and you can lose things, like, because once it gets opened, right, in the legislative, like, if someone starts putting other things, you can actually lose things that you were doing before or something. There's some,
because I think it's just up to them and their vote once it gets up there, and that's where it is kind of a risky road. I mean, for us, it seems pretty straightforward, and I guess like from what everybody I've talked to, everybody's very supportive of it and it makes sense, but that's where it's just good to go out and see what people can do to kind of tear into it, see what can be improved. And it's always good to, even if it is something where it's like, oh, this is really bad. It's like, oh, let me fix it. Like, okay, what can we change? You let me know.
Mm-hmm. So we're running out of time here, but
minute 30.
Johnny boy, tell us how we can help, right? Even if we're not in South Dakota, even if we're, not inpatient, like how can everyone who's listening to the pod aid you and help move this forward? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'd probably just say advocate for us, kind of reach out to different like doctors, providers, and especially if they're like, oh, if you guys could just order equipment, it'd be so much easier. You gotta be like, all right, like send an email. Let your kind of legislative branches know, because they call the shots and they're the ones kind of governing everything we do. Kind of changes all that. And if they have any good background on any of this stuff, I would love an extra hand. So if anybody has good information on including with the bill, I would take it. Articles, kind of background. APTA has been great with sending me different kind of legislative stuff from other states, but yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, well, we'll have you back on again.
We need an update.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Johnny boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good chatting. Good seeing you.
I know. We'll have Vinnie on here next time.
I'm just like, Johnny boy's grown up so much, so fast. Like,
yeah. I think we're gonna get booted any second now.
We're just waiting.
Yeah.
All right. Why did the doctor bring a red pen to work?
We don't know why.
Stay tuned. Might be a week, might be a month. Hopefully soon.